Welcome back. Welcome into Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com. It's a Paramount podcast. I am Mike Casazza here on Saturday night. West Virginia has lost again at home to Baylor, 49-35. To help me explain this one more time, it's Chris Anderson. This is an unscripted show, but this just feels like we're going to follow the script that we've done several times this season here. With a twist, though, Chris. Just sounds like Neal Brown's running out of explanations and patience with this. He's to a fault with the public. He's very elaborate and not defensive in a bad way, but defensive in the fact that he can explain some things or enlighten you with stuff, whether you like it or not. He's good with that. Just not getting that lately. The loss to the win over Arizona, the loss tonight, even a little bit of the stuff against Cincinnati. You just kind of get the sense that he's like, guys, what are you asking me for? You know the answers to these questions. Do you want my pound of flesh? Sure. And if he could just skip that and hand it to you before the news conference, he'd probably feel better about it. And just tonight, more of the same. Just kind of shrugging your shoulders saying, I don't know. Game 10, here it is, same stuff again. And that's not good enough. Neither is the team. And here we are. 5-5, Chris, 2 games to go. And you just don't know how this is going to turn out for so many people in so many different ways right now.
No, and I got lots of thoughts on what he said during the post game because some stuff, yeah. Some of it's just like, hey, what do you want me to say at this point? Some of it, I think, is some poor excuses. Some of it, I think, is maybe some realization. I mean, he started out with hey, the fans are pissed off, and they should be because we haven't competed at home. I mean, he brought up the part that they are going to have a losing record at home. Like it's already secured, done deal. 2-4 right now, one home game left. I noted on Twitter and had to correct, but there is a chance that this would be, if they don't win next week, the second time in a 133 years of WVU football that a team has lost 4 games in Morgantown. Or 5, excuse me, 5 games in Morgantown. Only the second time ever if they lose next week. So he was aware of that already. That maybe not that specific stat, but the poor performance at home. And I think, let me ask you this, Mike, before we go into something else. If West Virginia was, say, so they're 5-5, which means, say they were 4-1 at home and 1-4 away. Does that change anything? Does it matter that the poorest performances have been at home? I think is what I'm trying to say here.
Well, respect of the opposition. So if they get their 4-1 against the same home schedule, it's
I
totally
guess
different because
that's
then you've beaten some combination of Penn State, Iowa State, and Kansas State.
right.
So yeah, it's a lot different. But I'll say this, like this matters though, Chris, because if you look at the schedule, you grab that schedule in your hands, you're like, man, Penn State at home, a back-to-back at home. It turned out to be at night against Kansas State and Iowa State, which are teams above you. Kansas above you in the conference, in the preseason poll at least, at home. You go away for a little bit, but you have back-to-back road games separated by an open week, and then you come home for 2 games in a row in November against teams that are from Texas and Central Florida, like where it's a little bit warmer this time of year. You just kind of think, wow, that's a great schedule. And just again and again and again, Chris, this team does not make the best of a good situation. Just doesn't. And now you're like, all right, well now it's tough. And it is. And can they make the best of a bad situation? I don't know. It almost doesn't matter. The season is going to go where they wanted it to go. It's not. They had a chance, however small it was, to get some help. And if you're looking right now, like as we're talking, Arizona is putting it on Kansas State. That means Kansas State is down to 3 losses, and would be 3 losses. Is that right? Yeah,
Yep.
there are 2 loss teams, so you get that one out of the way. After you clear Cincinnati out of the way, you have a chance to clear. Like just there, it's there for you. It's there for you. And the whole thing about this Big 12 is easier without, Oklahoma and Texas. This plan that they kind of conceived and talked themselves into, and maybe didn't talk enough people into 2 years ago. It's here this month, Chris. It's here. 4 games, very reasonable. Home games. Mm, and to be that flat on defense, to be that bad on defense, and then to somehow, Chris, flip that switch at halftime, and to be fairly good on defense, and then just fumble everything on offense. Again, you have a good situation there. The first half is terrible. You somehow are down 7. You get a stop. You get into the red zone. You get third downs and fourth downs, which you're good at. You can't call the right play. You can't pull the trigger on the right play. And here you are. And this is going to be hard now because the body language, the demeanor, the energy, they were not connected tonight. And usually Browns teams are. This is not a consolation. People say they play hard, they don't give up, they play. They can't get all three sides of the ball together, but they try. And you'd have a hard time convincing me and probably also them that three played as one tonight. And that's kind of a rare and probably concerning element.
Let's go there then. First, the mindset, the body language, the all of this, because this
Would
was
you
one of the
would you agree? I mean, we haven't talked. We haven't talked. Would you agree?
no,
Like
it
that's
was
my
one of my
observation.
things in my stock up, stock down was
Okay.
stock down, like mindset. I didn't know what I said. Maybe that's not the right word. Maybe it is, whatever it is, but it was the body language. I posted a video of like multiple times during the game. You could see the defensive line and the linebackers at different points in the game turning around, yelling at the secondary, getting upset with the secondary. Posted the one video of TJ Jackson just losing it because, yes, once again, a miscommunication in the secondary leads to a long touchdown. There were other plays where guys for West Virginia were getting hit late out of bounds on West Virginia's sideline, and West Virginia's sideline was just kind of like, okay, whatever. Like that's the one where you end up with like shoving matches everywhere, and you just hope nobody gets a flag because you're sticking up for your teammates. West Virginia wasn't doing that tonight. I'm like, I felt I was like,
Hmm.
am I imagining this? I don't think I am. It just does not look like, and I'm glad you brought it up because yeah, we haven't talked. We hopped on the Zoom, hit record, and went going. We haven't talked about this. This is not planned, but we both saw the same thing that this is a team that is no longer together, I guess, is fighting for each other or doesn't look like it. The body language and looking at body language from a million miles away, it's hard to tell, but it did not look good.
So I know somebody who's been in a couple of games this year. He's at the Kansas State. I actually know a couple people who have been to the home games this year. And I talked to somebody after the game who said, I was here for the Kansas State game and they felt sorry for themselves and they came off the field because Garrett Green was hurt. Like they had injuries. They were in bad shape after that game. They just played two really good teams in a row. And they needed the open week and all that stuff. And they felt bad for themselves. And he said that after this game, you just didn't get that. They were just like, man, we're not good was kind of the vibe that he got from it. Like this is what it is right now, and you can't fool this stuff anymore. And um, here's the thing, Chris. Like this pretty much goes as expected. It just did. Like Baylor's got a dynamite offense right now. They've figured things out. They don't do a lot, but they do it really well. And they've been just putting it on people for quite some time. 4 weeks in a row now, the best offense in the country. And sure, West Virginia's defense aids that, but West Virginia's defense is supposed to aid that. They got picked on in certain spots. They made them they just attacked West Virginia's perimeter. They made the linebackers get outside. They made the defensive line run, and they dared the cornerbacks and safeties to make plays, and they couldn't. Um, those little plays, they flip the ball to the running back or the fullback or the tight end out in the flat. That's tough, man. And like you got to rally to make those tackles. You don't want to do that after a while, and you're just gobbling up yardage. You're staying on the field, and you're creating the chance for them to screw something up. And they did. The long touchdown pass to Cameron that that's a 4 yard pass that ends up as a 43-yard touchdown because you got guys taking the absolute worst angles imaginable of the ball. It's just pull the string, Chris, and it's the same thing. This is like a stuffed animal that's just not a lot of fun to play with right now.
Let me ask you this, since you brought it up there, and maybe I don't know if you've heard it, your conversations with the coaches and stuff, but why is it that because either way it's a problem, but I'm trying to figure out which. Why is it that they are ending up in situations where, like, say, Tyron Bradley, renowned edge rusher, is 10 yards downfield and 10 yards outside the hash marks playing pass coverage? Why is, linebackers that we've seen have issues in pass coverage, still 30 yards downfield trying to defend the pass? I don't, I would think and hope that at some point, the scheme and the play calls have changed, that they've realized that that's not working? Or is it really that just these other teams can so easily manipulate West Virginia's defense to get those matchups against them? Because every single time Baylor seemed to be able to get the ball to the guys that they wanted, you're like, wait, why is Tyron Bradley trying to tackle a guy 25 yards downfield in pass coverage right now? That shouldn't be what's happening. Why is Trey Lathan playing pass defense 30 yards downfield. Again, why is this happening? So is it, hey, credit to Baylor? Is that what we're doing here? Credit to Baylor, or is this another issue for West Virginia?
Credit Baylor. You just you cannot deny these stats lately. It's the best offense in the country the last 4 games. And we said that after 3 games, and people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize they were playing Alabama. They're killing teams right now with their offense. Their defense isn't very good, but they're going fast and they are doing what they do well, but they're also attacking teams where they're weak. Here's the problem, Chris, though. The 4 long touchdowns are 4 very different plays. Just 4 very different plays. It's not like it was one thing in one matchup or one person they picked on. The first touchdown pass is, I mean, the quarterback drops it in a bucket. The running back's covered, but he's also going vertical up a seam with nobody behind him. That's a weird thing to happen, right? The catch and run by Cameron is just a really bad play by Jacoby Spells and Anthony Wilson. That should be like a 4 or 5 yard gain. The long pass to Monterey Baldwin, we've seen that before. That ball at the seam where nobody's on him, where you just get it over top that intermediate defender where there's no safety there. That's happened before. That one is probably a tape play where a coach says we can probably get to this if we want to.
Well, hold on. Is that the one that Neal Brown was talking about in post game where he said they were in cover three and there was no reason that play should have been completed?
There was nobody in the middle.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
was
Because
not cover three.
I thought that was the play he was talking about. I was like, wait, is that the play he said was cover three? Because that was supposed to be cover three. There, big problem right
And then
now.
the long touchdown run by Washington is just it's a like not a dive, but it's like an inside zone play right up the middle. And like West Virginia's I think a better interior run defense and exterior last week's game notwithstanding, even though Cincinnati ran the ball pretty well. That's 4 different plays. It's not like they picked on one thing, and that's just the product of a bad defense. That's really the only way to say it. You can use a thesaurus and come up with different descriptions. It's bad, bad, and that's they were just in the crosshairs the entire game, and like somehow they played well in the third quarter. And then like you're like, all right, they got this close, and it was important to stay close in the third quarter because Baylor's really good in the fourth quarter. Again, the best fourth quarter offense in the country the past 4 weeks. The more points than anybody. You had 14 more points tonight to put it away because West Virginia, a couple fourth down plays, a really bad turnover, had chances, but I just don't want to hear that, Chris. I don't want to hear that because you I just don't want to hear it. Like you let the monster in. Like your defense is the monster, right? And it killed you. And you can't. Like when it's knocking, you got to find a way to like not let that happen. And they cannot do that. And they got away with it against Cincinnati, and they did not get away with it tonight. Like when they had to have something, they do not have the difference makers on defense, especially in skill positions. And for the in a nutshell, Chris, why are they dropping Bradley? They play drop bait so much because they're really bad on pass defense. They need defenders there. And for whatever reason, Robertson wasn't running a bunch tonight. He wasn't scrambling because he could see it really well and he could pick his spots. He had short, intermediate, and deep all game long. He went short a bunch, he went intermediate a bunch. Didn't really have to go deep because why would you when you're 12 for 12 to start the game? You're seeing it well. Perfect. Trust yourself. But Bradley has a pick in his hands. Has a pick in his hands. We've seen him one hand a ball, right? Doesn't get it on the ground, right? Drops it, and they score a touchdown right after that. That's the game. That's not why they lost. That's the game in a nutshell. They do not have playmakers who can do something like that to stop this. They have collectively, they can be really good at times on defense in their front 6 or 7. The back 4 or 5 is a problem for sure. Everybody knows that. They cannot summon enough consistency from their front to save them in the back end. And that's why they have to gimmick it up and do things like putting their linebackers in coverage and trying to help out in the back end. Those safeties and corners are problematic for sure, and they're having a hard time solving a problem that just isn't getting any better and really isn't getting any different, Chris. It's not getting worse. It's bad. It's been bad for a while.
I want to take issue with something else that Brown said in the post game, and I
Oh,
know
which one?
it's a it's a dangerous thing to do. The how do we properly allocate blame that game? Like they should get 70% of the blame and 30 whatever that's not healthy to do. I mean, heck, covering and watching college football is probably not healthy. So what are we doing here? But um, his comments there of like, hey, I don't want to say he was pinning the blame on the offense, but he's like, hey, we got like 3 stops there in the third quarter. The offense really screwed us. It's like, okay, I get what I think you're trying to say here. It's like there was at least a glimpse there, but just because the defense that you've set the bar so low for the defense that they
Right.
finally got a couple stops in the third quarter does not shift all the blame to the offense. They if not for the offense and the play of Green and White and a couple other guys, like this isn't even a game. It's not even a game. It's an embarrassing blowout in the first half. They played out of the offense played out of their minds for the entire first half just to make it a game. And so to then be like, hey, well, defense got 3 stops in the third quarter. Okay. They gave up 35 points in the first half. Like that doesn't change everything for me. And I hate that it's trying to shift blame back to the offense. And because I would basically what I'm getting is that those 2012 vibes where the offense is like, we don't have a choice. We have to score a touchdown every time because our defense is so terrible. And once that is sitting on your shoulders, it makes it that much more difficult for you to accomplish your goals. And that's what's happening to the offense right now. They know the defense is terrible. They know it's terrible. And it is a burden on them to try to score every single down the field.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like I said, it kind of took a I just did not take kindly to yeah, well, defense got 3 stops in the third quarter. Don't care. Don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah, again, like if you the order doesn't matter to me. Like if something bad happens, it happens. Like, oh, we played miserable in the second quarter. We played good in the third. Well, yeah, the miserable thing happens. Like if you're a boxer and you win 6 rounds, but you get knocked out in the seventh, you still lost. Doesn't matter. Like they don't count the other 6 rounds. So that's not a good thing. Chris, I thought you were going to take exception to the yes, we lost our home games, but a lot of it has to do with the people we're playing, presumably the opponents and not the people that they're putting on the field, or
Mm.
the fact that again, like bringing up the schedule and a team coming off a bye, and like I'm telling you, get ready for this because I heard this during the week talking to people that the fact that Cincinnati and now Baylor and then UCF were all off the week before they play West Virginia. That's a thing that was talked about this week, and it didn't come up last week because West Virginia won. It's probably going to come up now because it's going to be back-to-back opponents, and they just lost one. Never mind
It's
that
already
West
coming
Virginia.
up. It's already coming up. See, you were in the press box, so you didn't
Mhm.
get to hear the radio feed.
No,
They were already starting. It was already before the game was even over. Can you believe Baylor's coming off a bye and the next game's coming off a bye? Look how fresh they look here in the second half. The marching orders have been passed down to spread that word.
home games in November, back-to-back. Road games split up by an open week. That's just fortuitous. Here's Brown because I asked Brown because here again observation, Chris. We haven't talked. You tell me. I'll give you my scenario here, but he looked like he was caught in between what to do. Field goals, go for it. Sometimes he kicks the field goal, and I bet you he probably wishes me maybe he had one back. Um, Punting from the 38-yard line. I know it's 4th and 15, but what's the difference? Punting from his own 35, okay, but it's 4th and 1. He's down 14-21. I'm assuming he knows he can't win the game if he's down by 7. And I just wonder if at certain points he's like, I want to be this here at this level that's better than we're at, but I'm down here at this level that is worse than I thought. I don't know if it surprised him or what. I think he's probably a pragmatic person who thinks through all these scenarios. But when that monster's in the room, Chris, and you can't stop anybody, it makes you think different. So you have to ask him, is your defense and the combination of Baylor's offense, is that affecting you as a play caller, as an offense? He says, I hope not. But I think when you have trouble stopping people, it puts a lot of pressure on you put a lot of pressure on yourself. I'm not saying that's right, but you're probably accurate. We spent a lot of time talking about you can control what you control. The defense can't control the offense can't control the defense, um, so on and so forth. That means they're thinking about this, Chris. And do you get the sense tonight that strategically or even in like specific situations that he did not want to behave the way he behaved, but he almost felt like he had no choice? It's not 2020, 2012 bad, even though I had 70 to 63 vibes tonight, Chris. But do you think that he was a little spooked tonight, or the offense was a little spooked, and perhaps it's some of the play calls or decisions, or maybe it's as simple as Justin Robinson dropping a pass on 4th down? That's very easy. But when you got to make a play, those plays become hard, even if they're easy.
Yeah, I think first off, to be fair, none of the three fourth down decisions, I think, were just so very clearly, or at least two of them were not like, oh yeah, this is a no doubter. 4th and 1 at the 44. Like, of course you're going for it or whatever, on the positive 44. If you would have said, hey, would you ever punt from the 38? I would say there's absolutely no way unless it's 4th and 15, and then I'd have to think about it. And it's unfortunate. Like, so tougher decisions, I think, than normal because I've been pretty pro going for it all the time. Tonight was a little tougher. I think for me making would be tougher for me making decisions on that. But I agree with you. I think like for instance, the one where they were down 7 and it was what was it, 4th and 3 at the 10-yard line, something like that. the pass to, I think that was the one with the pass to Cole Taylor that came up short. And it was maybe if you're down 7 and you still got a lot of time left, take a little field goal there. Now all of a sudden a touchdown gives you the lead after that. Because as he pointed out, the defense had got a couple stops right before then. Maybe momentum shifting. Who knows? Hey, decisions were a lot tougher tonight than I think the normal. And I do believe that the porous play of the defense played into his decision making. So yes, I agree with you. There's a long way of saying I agree with you.
Yeah, okay. Something else I think people are probably getting tired of is we would have scored the touchdown if we just executed the rest of the play. I think West Virginia may lead the country in that one. I'll have to check the stats here. Certainly in the last 4 games, right? Just seems like so. For example, on the fourth down play that gets blown up by the perfectly timed blitzed, he's going to blame the center and the guard in this one, but the blitz is perfect. He says that Green has a sprint play to the right. He can roll out and pass it, or he can roll out and run it. And he says that they would have scored a touchdown if not for the blitz getting home and making him throw it fast. Just how many times? Can they have a perfect play call? But so does the other team, right? Or the other team executes to stop you from executing. And again, just I don't know who you're convincing with that one. Because the other team doesn't care, the fans don't care, and especially when you have a long list of these examples, something is wrong. It's not the fact that you just keep getting skunked on those plays. You're not in the right spot. You're just something is wrong all the time and that stuff too. And I just it's hard to buy that wow, we would be 8-3, something like that. I guess 8-2, whatever. We'd be so much better off if we had just gotten these darn plays that had touchdown written all over them, if not for the many things that happened. And I think back to the game at UConn for Bill Stewart in his final season where they turned it over like 6 times, and I said I thought he says I thought we played great on defense if not for the turnovers. Yeah. Or I thought we played great on offense and not for the turnovers. Yeah, you did. Except the turnovers are a big part of offense. And tonight, I thought we did great on offense in certain spots, or I thought we would have done better if not for the miscues. Well, the miscues do matter. And again, just the story of the season. Hey, bright spots, Green. Um, that I don't know if you want him coming back and having a career high in passing attempts and also rushing attempts. He'd never pass the ball more in a game. He'd never run the ball more in a game. They happened in the same game. You put a lot on him in the first game, but also, Chris, the only way they win this game tonight is if Green puts on a cape and does like a Superman thing, which, in the first half wasn't pretty, but they should have been getting killed in the first half. And some crazy things happen, onside kick and all that. And they're right there. And again, the third quarter is good for the defense, not for the offense, but a bizarre game because that's a high usage for him, but that's probably the only way they win this game too. Perhaps he can play defense.
Yeah, I'm looking at his stuff here. I was trying to see what it was. Yeah, so halftime, he had 110 yards passing and 116 yards rushing. What did he end up with? 237, and so he only rushed for 13 more yards. Now he got sacked a couple times, which will play into that, but it definitely fell off in the second half. Maybe that was some adjustments from Baylor's defense. Some of it was certainly the wide receivers dropping the football. Probably the worst I think I've seen as far as drops go from receivers and tight ends this season. So that did
Yeah.
not help. But yeah, so 19 of 39. Let's get some math here. So 10 of 23 in the second half passing the ball for Green, and only 7 rushes for 13 yards in the second half for him. So, I mean, it was the Garrett Green show. Look, I mean, that was kind of what we said when we talked about it. I said, hey, the best offense is when it's Garrett Green and Jaheim White running all over the place. And that's what it was in the first half. Second half, not so much. Not so much at all.
They got him with a blitz in
Just
the third quarter, maybe in the fourth quarter too. They started to get him a little bit. I think I took away some of his running lanes to the middle or outside. They started running from the short side of the field and they're blitz a bunch, which is good. It's an adjustment. Aranda's really good at seeing something and changing. I think Brown said that during the week too. Like he's going to have answers, and that was one. They pressured a bunch and they run blitz, they pass blitzed, took away some stuff in that third quarter, and that's what made it hard. And like their situational blitzing was pretty good. Truth be told, Chris, not for penalties on third down for Baylor. I don't. This game probably isn't as close either. There were 3-on-1 drive. They had a dropped interception in the end zone. There were a couple of the third down penalties that kept drives alive. But Baylor is also a team that commits a lot of penalties, so you can kind of say that's who they are. I think you brought that up in the pregame pod too. A lot of penalties for Baylor. They play aggressive on defense. That'll happen sometimes too. Very handsy, but that's been Baylor for as long as they've been in the Big. Or West Virginia's been in the Big 12. It feels like too. Just and like they're talented on offense. They are like they found their offensive line now. They played four combinations, which again is like a top five number. It doesn't happen very often, but they've started the same group five times in a row. They look good tonight. When they had to get pushed, they did. Their receivers are good. They have different roles for different guys. You know, some guys go deep, some guys run hook routes. They flip the ball. They're short guys. They just have a good plan on offense, and West Virginia just does not have that on defense here too.
Can
Have we
I
beat
ask
the dead
you?
horse enough here? Oh, we have not.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
no, no, no. I'm gonna we talk about beating a dead horse. Get ready, because I think you've been asked this 5 or 6 times over the course of the year. It's
do
time
it.
to
All
update
right.
your percentage rankings. The Neal Brown hot seat rankings currently 5-5, right? Yeah, 5-5.
If they lose next week, Chris, he's in trouble. Like he's in trouble now. But if they lose next week, that puts everything in the basket for a road game against Texas Tech. And listen, they may have that because for whatever reason, this team has talked itself into the fact that they have to get away from home because they play better on the road. And that is a terrible thing to say, but it's true. They said that before. They said it probably, they'll probably say it now too. But if they do not get UCF, they're 5-6 with a whole lot of pressure on themselves. And again, I just have serious doubts that this team can make the best of a bad situation because I haven't seen them make the best of a good situation yet. And that's not just a 1 year thing. That's been a complaint or a critique for a while. So they lose that one and you go 2-5 at home and the margin of victory may matter there or not, but like you lose your people. You do. So like next week becomes very important, just very, very important. UCF is playing for bowl eligibility, Chris. They've got a little bit of a spark with the new quarterback. They run the ball like crazy. They'll play fast. Malzahn's a very good offensive coach. You know, he can't make the plays, but he can call them. And I just think if you sit down and you look at West Virginia's defense, you can figure out a couple of things to do. And that game is very worrisome, I think, if you're West Virginia, just because they have an offense that can play. Will it travel? Don't know. 5-7 is going to be hard, Chris. It's just going to be hard because, and here's another thing. They go 6-6. They go 5-7. They keep Brown. They're not keeping Jeff Coons at this point. After what you saw today, after what you kind of like saw shades of, I just have a hard time believing that they don't win out or they don't impress in the last two games. And if you go 5-7 or 6-6, it's because your defense was a problem on some level. Who are they hiring as defensive coordinator? You're going to have a hard time getting a name or somebody who's competent because you're really worried about your coach and how long he's going to be here. So are you leaving a job as a DC or as somebody who's up and coming for a 1 year stay, a 9-month visit to Morgantown? I would have my doubts about that. That's going to be a really hard thing to do. Do you change the whole staff then? Don't know. I think a lot of people believe there will not be a lot of head coaching changes in the FBS this year. I talked to someone this week who told me like 5 to 10, just because people are scared of making the change and the money involved right now. So that works for Neal Brown, but also he's making it an easier conversation to have and making it an easier conversation to talk people into if they do go 5-7. 6-6, I would not foresee a change, Chris. 5-7 with everything lined up the way we talked about. Can't do that, Chris. I don't know. Like sooner or later, like this is not the first time. Like, and just to have this pressure and to still be on like a hump of coal, that's tough. It's tough. Sooner or later, it's got to change. And I just wondered, like, if people go, it's not the guy, not the time. Will they make that expense? I don't know. But there's a lot to think about, and I would think 5-7 is really, really tricky for him. 6-6, you probably feel pretty good, even if you don't like the decision. 5-7 is gonna be very hard because they should be better than 5-7 when they beat Arizona, they beat Cincinnati, and they had back-to-back home games.
And you know the other wrinkle, Mike,
Hmm?
is that I in West Virginia afford to have 2 coaching changes after they fired Darren DeVries after Friday night.
Deplorable.
Yeah, that's just asking. Don't get that started. I'm gonna make you have to do a percentage for the remaining 29 games for Darren DeVries. Stick around. I'm here for
Yeah.
that.
Pitt might be good. Baylor might be good. We'll see if UCF is any good. Up next, Chris, you have your regular array of Sunday features. I will have three things. I think three things I know. We'll look at some snap counts, have a little basketball feature about what the heck happened, and what they can figure out. But um, I don't know, Chris, that was a wild first half. Were there plays that changed the game? What happened here?
Yeah, that Dustin Robinson drop on fourth down, that was
Play the
as
game.
big as you probably thought it was. Because
Mhm.
right before that play, West Virginia was driving. It was a tie game, and West Virginia was a 60-some% favorite to win the game. Drop, touchdown for Baylor, 3 and out, touchdown for Baylor, 20-yard punt, touchdown. Next thing you know, I believe West Virginia was like a 10% chance of winning and down 14 right before Dave Aranda's beautiful onside kick attempt that gifted West Virginia 7 points.
Let's do that. Let's do that real quick. I
Okay.
hated it. I hate it live because like sometimes, man, just coaches got to coach. You know, it worked once in practice, coach. Let's run it right now. We got him. Um, Here's the brilliance of it though, Chris. Like they I don't know, like they got a touchdown after it, so they almost negated the damage. So you're thinking, all right, if we don't get it, West Virginia scores, their defense stinks. We'll get the ball back with like 2 minutes left and we'll score. So give West Virginia a short field, you get the ball back, and you can end up the half. The trouble is they gave West Virginia 47 seconds. And then they scored to make it in the worst decision. But like the funny thing is, like they had a shot at it. They had a shot. It wasn't a perfect hit, but like the guy was like, oh, I might be able to get this. I don't like it live. It doesn't matter now. It's harmless. I just think it makes the game unnecessarily complicated late in the first half. Weird element to that first half, but I hated it when it happened. I'm thinking you're killing this team right now. Don't give them hope. Make them drive 80 yards. They might have. And then again, like the weird part about it is you give them a short field, they score, and you have a chance to end the half with a touchdown. They got that part right. They just didn't defend. But also they had 3rd and 17, and Clement makes a great play to keep that drive alive. Where did you stand on that?
Yeah, I thought it was dumb. I mean, I'm with you. Like, if you watch that first half up to that point, yes, it felt like like it was a tie game. It wasn't a tie game. It was a tie game just a couple minutes earlier. Again, we already went over the series of events that happened after that fourth down drop, but Baylor was kind of in charge. Like they were moving the ball at will. So offensively, there was zero concerns about what they were doing on that side of the ball. And defensively, they had finally slowed West Virginia down
Yeah.
after West Virginia had scored the first couple of times. So why? Why? Like everything was trending your direction on both sides of the ball. There's no need to, yeah, there's just no need for that. That was dumb.
Weird, fun, wild,
Yeah.
wonderful. That's West Virginia football this year. That'll wrap it up tonight. Until next time, I'm Mike Casaza.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
We will talk to you then.